Hello, hello, this is the Xperia Z2 from Sony. It's physically almost identical to the Z1 that came out last year and also to the Xperia Z before that. But looks can be deceiving because these phones from Sony are getting better and better all the time, and the Z2 is actually easier to recommend than any of its predecessors.
For a start, Sony's so-called triluminous display panel has been fixed. This was one of the big hold-ups with the last model, but the Z2 has much better viewing angles and contrast. The black levels still aren't quite on a par with the displays on the Galaxy S5 or the HTC One M8, but this is compensated for by great colours, which strike a good balance between being vivid and being natural. Another improvement is battery life. This was already a strong point with the Z1, but here Sony has managed to eke out even more stamina by giving the Z2 a bigger battery and an upgraded Snapdragon 801 processor. You'll find that the handset's longevity is at least as good and often better than most of its rivals, depending on how exactly you use your phone.
This brings us to the one caveat with the Xperia Z2, and it's a big caveat because this frankly is a big phone. An unnecessarily big phone, you could argue, especially when you compare it to some of its rivals. So for example, you have the LG G2. This phone has the same size display as the Z2, but it's significantly smaller. You can also compare it to HTC's new One. Quite a long phone, but it's long because it has boom sound speakers, and this has relatively tinny speakers, so it doesn't have that excuse. Lastly, the Z2 is also slightly wider and longer than the Z1, which was already a chunky phone. And although Sony has managed to make the Z2 slightly lighter, it's still noticeably less friendly to hold.
Hello?
For a lot of people, we think this size will be a deal breaker, but for many others, it'll be an acceptable sacrifice given all the benefits. Not just a larger battery capacity, but also the waterproofing and dustproofing that make this phone seriously rugged. There's also the excellent camera, which is carried over from the Z1. Speaking of which, we still think this is the best camera you'll find on any Android phone for the time being, thanks to its large 20 megapixel sensor that captures tons of detail, producing images that can tolerate being cropped and edited later. It's almost good enough to replace a point and shoot, so long as you can survive without a zoom lens.
So if this was just a question of what the Z2 can do, then this would be easy to recommend without hesitation. It's got a great display, great battery life, one of the best cameras you can get on an Android phone, and it's also more rugged than many of its rivals. But when you factor in the size issue and the general blockiness of the design and also of Sony's UI, then it becomes more a matter of personal taste. And we'd say that the Galaxy S5 from Samsung and the new HTC One probably have a slight edge in that department. This has been Sharif for Engadget. Thank you for watching.
You are now inside what we call the ultimate luxury mobile. It's luxury, modern luxury meets